All right. Welcome to Backbones, Women in SCI Health Talks. This program is funded by the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. My name is Emily Lacey, and I'm the program coordinator. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be sent to everyone who registered via email and uploaded to our YouTube channel, where you can find all of our past recordings from the series. If you are new to Backbones, our organization is committed to helping people with spinal cord injuries and similar disabilities find connection and community. We do this by hosting events both in person and virtually, facilitating one-on-one peer support, and providing resources to individuals with spinal cord injuries and their families when they're trying to navigate life post-injury. I encourage you to check out our website at www.backbonesonline.com to find more information about our programs. We are a community-led program that seeks to bring awareness and education about women's health in the context of SCI. Our topics and format were the results of 2 community listening sessions where women with SCI from across the country provided insight. To continue to be community-led and directed, we will send an email tomorrow with a short survey as well as a copy of this webinar, which you may share freely. The link to the survey will be dropped in the chat shortly. It's 5 questions and should only take you a few minutes to complete. We thank you in advance. In addition to this recorded webinar, we also have a private, only for women with SCI, small discussion group to unpack tonight's conversation and share personal experiences and support. If you are interested in the small group, please go to our website and click the program tab. The link will also be dropped in the chat. I will introduce our amazing guest speakers shortly. We will have a 10 to 15 minute Q&A at the end of the webinar. You are welcome to submit questions for our speakers through the Q&A option on Zoom or send them directly to me in the chat. I will read questions that are submitted. If at any point you would like our guest speakers, Gina or Madison, to clarify something, please raise your hand and type the question in chat. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome our wonderful guest speakers tonight. Gina Schuh is a painter with a flair for color and thought-provoking images. She had a spinal cord injury in 2003 at the age of 18. Realizing the injustice many people with disabilities face, Gina received her law degree and pursued disability advocacy for many years, focusing on sexuality and progressive legislation. During COVID, Gina rekindled her love of art and has recently found herself exhibiting her paintings in galleries. Her art is really awesome. You should check it out. Madison Russell is a T5 incomplete paraplegic from I cannot say this word. Syringomyelia, maybe close. She is also a dancer, handcyclist. Her hand cycle is hot pink. It's really cool. And an advocate for queer disabled women. Rebecca Torres, the executive director of Backbone, is our moderator for tonight's discussion. Thank you so much for being here this evening, Gina and Madison. I will now hand the webinar over to Rebecca.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you for the intros, and thank you, Gina and Madison, for joining us today. I know a lot of people are excited about this webinar today. We've had many webinars since the beginning of the year, and this has been one that a lot of people requested, and like I said, excited to talk about. And who isn't excited to talk about dating, huh? And so let's get started. I'd love to hear from both of you. If you wanted to give us, I know Emily just read some great intros, but if you wanted to give us a little more information about yourself, if you're comfortable sharing your SCI story, your SCI level. I think sometimes people can kind of relate to that, knowing that, and maybe some of your interests or some of the work that you do out in the community.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead, Madison.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm Madison. I'm 22 years old. I just recently graduated from Rochester Institute of Technology. I work as a digital accessibility specialist for a company called Elsevier, which does like medical school training and journals and things. I am also a hand cyclist and a dancer. I travel to the Rolettes experience every year in LA for women in wheelchairs, which is really fun. I also work with United Spinal for their grassroots advocacy program and their Roll on Capitol Hill event every year where we go and advocate for legislative changes. So my SCI story is I have a cyst in my spinal cord at T5, which is like here-ish down. I started having trouble walking when I was, I think, 16 or 17. By the time I was 18, I was in a wheelchair and was misdiagnosed. When I was 19, they did an MRI that found the cyst, and at that point, it was too late to do anything about it. And so it was in 2019 that I got my official diagnosis. I've been in a wheelchair since 2018. And yeah, still just an incomplete paraplegic. I have some sensation and movement. It's like patchy, which is similar for a lot of incompletes. But yeah, I think that's my kind of quick story.
Cool,
Gina,
thank you.
would you like to share?
Yeah, sure. So I am now 37 and I have been in a wheelchair for almost 19 years. I broke my neck when I was 18 years old diving into a swimming pool. So I am a quadriplegic. I'm a C5-6 complete. See, all you guys trying to be complete. No, I'm just kidding. Nobody needs to complete me. I already am complete. So I had my injury when I was younger. So I was in culinary school and realized, well, I probably can't do that. I ended up getting my bachelor's in political science, and then I got my law degree, and then I got into advocacy, and I really enjoyed that. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to admit this, but I was Miss Wheelchair Arizona 2009. But that really got me into advocacy, and I kind of fell in love with it. I grew up a farmer's daughter, so I'm really a tomboy at heart, to be honest. So I am kind of a casual girl that's low key. I've been married. I've been divorced. I had another long-term relationship. And so I've been in the dating world, here and there, in and out sporadically. That is pretty much my story. I currently, most of my work is in real estate and things like that. And I paint, obviously. For those of you that are curious, Inside Gina's Head on Instagram is my my painting. So, but that's, where I'm at in life now. And I'm single and having fun.
Excellent. Well, I'm interested in getting into learning more about that. So could you both kind of share a little bit about what your journey was like? You both sort of came to the disability world later teens, right? And so it's around the time where you start dating and everything. What was your journey like when I'm sure you had some apprehension or maybe an excitement to get into the dating world, and what was that like after your injury?
Yeah, I can go first. So yeah, I definitely had I dated a little bit in high school, but not a whole lot. And so I became a wheelchair user the summer between high school and college, which actually ended up, I feel like, is a good time because it's a transition in your life anyway. If it's going to happen, I think that's a good point in life when you're transitioning. But I got to college and realized, I don't think I said this, I'm a lesbian. And so I got to college and I went to a majority male college. And so already the pool was very small for, queer women there. So I immediately wanted to use dating apps. I know Tinder lets you just pick only people that go to your school. So I did that as a way to make it easier, but I definitely went through the whole, do you include the wheelchair in your pictures thing? That was a huge struggle for me because I was brand new as a wheelchair user. And I was like, well, I don't know, are people even going to like me if I do that? And so that was the big struggle for me starting out. And I think I did, I tried both and I got matches with both, and, with and without the chair, and just kind of went from there. But I was very nervous. I was nervous that every date was going to be all about the disability, or people were going to, I don't know, there's not very many female devotees, but they do exist. And so, just kind of worried about that. That was, definitely that dating app apprehension was where that started with me.
That makes sense. Yeah. See, for me, luckily none of that stuff existed back when dinosaurs ruled the world, you know. When I had my injury, we didn't have that stuff, thank the Lord. So I actually, ironically for me, when I first got injured, I was 18 as well. So like right in that transition period, luckily, I didn't have like a full career or anything that I had to give up as well. But I had a PT and an OT pursue me actually when I was in the hospital, and I had my first kiss when I was in the hospital before I left. Like I was in a halo. It's a hot story. It's such a hot story. But it really gave me that boost of confidence. Like, cause I'm not gonna lie, when I first got injured, I was like, cause I'm a quadriplegic, so I can't like transfer myself easily into bed. Like I require care. Like I was thinking like, you know, who's going to want to take this on when we're at a point where everyone wants their independence? Obviously 18, you're like, oh, I thought like, who's going to want to take this on? Well, I figured out real quick, there are men that are willing to do it. And that gave me such an incredible confidence booster. And then I ended up dating about a year after my injury, and I met my now ex-husband. So it was funny for me. I felt like I needed to date kind of to prove to people still that like somebody wanted me, when in reality, I probably should have just like waited and not dated someone right away, because I didn't really know who I was in my injury. You know, I was about to be a new person. I was reborn. It's kind of how I look at it. So I think for me, I wish I hadn't kind of jumped into it. I wish I had taken a little bit of time before I really got into it as I had a new injury, discovering who I am as a woman. But that it was, for me, I really enjoy, I like dating. I think it's fun as long as I didn't have an issue though with like putting my chair out there. I'm very like direct and straightforward, because being a quadriplegic, there's not much I can hide, you know, like there's a lot of work. I'm high maintenance.
Madison, you kind of talked a little bit about doing the online dating thing, and what other, and Gina, you just straight in the hospital. That's how you started dating. What other ways have you both sort of navigated or experienced dating? And actually, I'd love to hear a little more about online dating and how you had, like, how did it go when you did post pictures or didn't post pictures, and what, you know, how did that make you feel, or how did that make you sort of change your outlook on dating?
Yeah, the dating apps, I did both, including my disability and not including my disability. I didn't really see a difference in like whether that was the first picture or not, but I saw a difference in like matches. So I was getting a lot of matches, but nobody was responding to me. And you know, I don't know if it was somebody saying like, oh, I would feel bad if I didn't swipe because like that means I'm ableist, or like I don't want to look like, you know. But then, or in some cases, I think it was my first picture didn't have the wheelchair and they matched, and then when I messaged them, they went back and looked at the pictures and like scrolled through all of them and went, oh, and didn't, you know. I had some people unmatch after I just said, hey, what's up? And I'm pretty certain they probably looked through the pictures and then went, oh, yikes, and then unmatched. I didn't really want to date any other way, mostly because being queer, like it's hard to you can't just walk up to somebody and go, hey, are you gay? I like you. So that's why I kind of chose, you know, Tinder, and all of my friends were on dating apps as well. I had my first Tinder date like in maybe 3 months of being a wheelchair user, very early. First thing she said was, so what's up with the chair? I had some people message me the same thing, but I'm still on dating apps. I think I prefer them to anything else. At this point, I'm not going to go to singles night at a bar or anything. So I think that online dating is a really great way to kind of meet people in your area that are going to be interested in you. But yeah, so I'm still on. I use Tinder mostly. I used Bumble for a while. Yeah, I think I think Bumble is the one where the woman's supposed to respond first. When you're both women, they just let either one of you do it, but then you don't end up. It's like a lesbian sheep syndrome. Lesbian sheep will die without a mate because traditionally the male sheep like pursue them. It's an actual thing, but so like neither of us wanted to say anything, so then like that didn't work out either. So
interesting. I have never actually not put my wheelchair on a dating app because like for me, I feel like first off, it's just like part of me and my life and who I am. And I don't want the person to feel like I'm being disingenuous. There is something like, I don't want to feel like I'm hiding things straight from the beginning, like, cause they're going to feel like, well, what else are you not going to tell me? And plus I suck at keeping my own secrets. Like I can keep other people's secrets, but like for myself, like, I'm like, no, I just want to share everything. I'm like too much. Right. I even put on there, like, I don't claim them to be the best hiking partner or whatever, like in the first line. And that's true. But my thing is ironic. I got off of all the dating apps today. Actually, I was like, I'm going to pop off for a little while and take a cleanse because, you know, you get on those things and you do it for a little while. And sometimes you need a little bit of a break. I find like dealing with men and then me being in a chair, I get sexualized a lot. I'm treated a lot like an object. They're very curious. Like, what's it like to have sex with a girl in a wheelchair? And so like, I deal with that a lot. So I deal with that also when I'm out, like in public. Men will approach me. I don't have problems like meeting people, but meeting quality people I find is very challenging, because I tend to attract the ones that like have mommy issues. So like, you know, I'm like, okay. But the thing is for me, I do meet people. I met a lot of people like in school. When I was in school, it was a great place. Out with friends, like in like groups of friends, meeting other people, like doing sporting events with friends and things like that. Like I'll often meet people. But it's, for me, I love dating apps. I think they're wonderful. You have to have a thick skin. You cannot be sensitive because people don't really have a lot of sensitivity on these dating apps because, you know, you're sitting behind a computer and nobody's holding you accountable. You don't have to look at the person in the face. So they say whatever they want. And a lot of men will say pretty vulgar things at times. And so expect that and just don't take everything so personally, because I think also people in general just very curious, and that's okay. Like being curious is okay. Do it respectfully. Also with the apps, you know, you are gonna get that people don't want to date you because you're in a wheelchair, and that's okay. You know, like my mom said, she told me early on, that's a weed eater, honey. You're just getting rid of those people early on because you don't want them in your life later on. And then they leave you if you have some accident, after you know, you have 2 kids and you're on your own. Like, and she's right. Like it does get rid of a quality of person who cannot handle that type of thing. So if anyone swipes on you, like, you know, if they unmatch you because of it, good riddance, kiss it. That's how I feel. But as you know, dating apps are very powerful. You know, you've got a lot of people at the tip of your finger, like, you know, available. It can be dangerous. Be careful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's such a huge difference in dating apps between like dating men and women. I don't think I've ever gotten any inappropriate message from a woman. I have on Instagram from men, but like on dating apps, I haven't. So it's very interesting to hear like the experience of dating men versus women, because women are much less likely to be weird about it.
That's interesting to hear. Yeah. Okay, so now you went on the dating app or you met someone through a mutual friend and now you have a date. What do you do to prepare for your date? Whether it's like mentally or for your,
I'm just kidding.
Sorry?
I said, wax my vagina. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding. No, but that's part of it, grooming. I think a big part of like when you're in a wheelchair, grooming is harder. Getting in the shower is harder. Going and shaving your legs is harder. You gotta like pick them up, you know, you gotta like shaving everything is more challenging. Let's be real, ladies. I mean, but when I do it, I feel so good about myself, just like doing my hair, doing my makeup, making sure my eyebrows are on point, and like just doing that self-care and kind of preparing myself like to like feel good. That's a big part of it for me. I gotta be honest. That's a really big part of it for me. My mom said my vanity has been my best friend because she says it keeps me healthy. But you know, like it's true for me. That's a big part of it. And then also getting to talk to them a little bit before I meet them, knowing that I'm gonna like enjoy myself helps me calm down. Not like jumping into a date and being like, oh crap, this could suck. Like knowing a little bit beforehand what I'm going to expect, that does me some justice. So yeah, that's for me, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do the makeup, hair, cute clothes thing. I'm trying to think if I even do anything disability related beforehand. I always make sure to talk to somebody for a significant amount of time before meeting up, because I just want to, I don't know. I just like talking to people for a while first. And then once we finally go on a date, I always do dates in very public places. So kind of preparation, finding a place, figuring out who's going to be there. And also, is the place wheelchair accessible? I guess is my like big one, is if we're going to a restaurant or something, I kind of need to check beforehand. But yeah, I mean, just emotionally, I always prepare myself for the questions that I might get. Yeah, I think that's about it for how I prepare.
I think preparation wise, like disability wise, I mean, I make sure I cath before I go. I'm like, but I actually am going to be honest. I am somebody that is a little riskier. I'll meet people early on, like, because nowadays we have social media, you can snoop the heck out of somebody, and you can figure out really like a lot of, okay, do they have a lot to lose? Like, is this guy like gonna want to risk, no, probably not. So I have actually like had a guy over for a drink that I haven't met. I will be honest, and my friends are like, but I'm like, you know what? This is the day and age that we're in, and like, a lot of them they got kids and stuff at my age, so it's just a little more low key. I do what makes me feel comfortable. Like now I'm at the point where I'm like, what am I comfortable with? And I have to ask not what I feel like everybody else feels like I need to be doing, like how do I feel about dating? And that's usually how I handle it. That's where I go with it. Yeah. And I don't do anything that's going to be a long time. Like,
what do you mean? Like not staying out for like
I don't do dinners. Like I'll go for a drink, or I'll go for like appetizers or like something like that, because one time I like went and did a dinner and I got stuck with this guy I couldn't even stand. It was just absolutely miserable. I was like crawling in my skin, right? And so I'm just like, I gotta eat though. So I'm like, I'm sitting there, I gotta eat my food. So I eat my food and I finish. But I learned my lesson from that. Like, don't do something that you're not going to be stuck and committed to for a really long time, because if you don't like that person, like you want to have the autonomy to leave.
Yeah. I almost always do coffee dates for the first date, because then like no alcohol involved. I can drive home after. If I need to leave, I don't have to wait for an Uber or anything. Plus, like, I don't know, I feel like coffee shops are a pretty safe like location, like not even like physically safe, but like it's a very neutral zone.
I feel like people who ask me on coffee dates are responsible.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm like, that's a good sign. You pay your bills.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Awesome. So let's say, okay, you've gone on the first date, you're having more dates. How have you all approached, disclosing and starting to talk about some of these like disability related things, like the cathing, the bowel program, the spasms, the pain, the sex stuff? Like what do you all do to disclose, or like, have you had apprehension about that? And yeah, let's do with that.
I'm pretty straightforward, honestly. Like my stuff. Also, if a guy is gonna date me and they happen to Google me, they can find out anything they want because they can read articles I've written, and I'm like so open about that. I don't talk about my bowel program because even able-bodied people don't say like, "Hey, nice to meet you. I want to date you. Do you want to know how I should?" Excuse my language, but you know what I'm saying? Like we don't do that. Weird. Like I'm not like, by the way, no. Instead, I'm like, oh, I need an accessible bathroom. I will mention that. And if I mention that and they go, if they want to know more, they'll be like, well, what's that? Like, or how do you do, like they'll want to know, but I open the door so they feel comfortable like asking, but I don't bombard them with information because first off, like it was too much for me even when I like started. So I don't want to be like, whoa, my world is disability, because my world really isn't. They don't cath me. They don't do my bowel program. They don't do like none of that. Like I do it all on my own. So it's more about them knowing about my life. I don't lead with it, but I'm pretty open about it. I don't really talk about the bowel program until like later because that really isn't something I'm like, they're not going to be helping me. So that's not like a discussion. I'm like, hey, everything else, sexuality, I'm very open about, like extremely open, because I have expectations for sexuality and I don't want my partner to be thinking that like, just because I'm in a wheelchair, like I'm not wanting to get down. Like, I'm like, hey, listen, you gotta be ready. So like, that's kind of, I'm very honest that way. And that's really how it is. And I let things come up organically. I don't force it. I think that's a big part of it, because always putting disability, like shoving it in someone's face, they're just going to think that's all your life is. And they're like, they don't relate a lot of times, unless you're dating somebody else that's disabled. But I only date able-bodied men because I need somebody who can pick me up. I mean, no offense, disabled men, you are gorgeous. And I would totally sit on your lap if I could, but I can't. So like, I think that's something to think about. So guys that I date are able-bodied, they don't relate to that. So like, you want to be relating with, if you like that person, you talk to them about things that you guys can understand each other on. And so I don't really lead with that. I just slip it in here and there. Yeah, that's it.
It's about the same for me. If they don't bring it up, I don't talk about it on the first date at all. I think I've only had one date where she actually brought up the wheelchair thing. Like she just straight out, like first thing she asked was, why are you in a wheelchair? But
do you like that? Do you like that? Do you mind if I ask you, do you like when somebody's direct like that?
I think it really depends on the context. If we're like talking about like if I say something about my car or something and they say, how do you drive? Like that's fine. It's when it's just out of the blue, like you can tell they've been thinking about it the whole date and they just don't want to ask yet. And then they're like, okay, I'm going to ask. Like that's kind of annoying, but I will bring it up on the second date if they don't ask on the first. But I did have one where I wish I brought it up on the first date and brought it up on the second date. And I like explained why. And she was like, oh, okay. Like I didn't want to ask. And she goes, I love taking care of disabled people. That's what I do in the summer. I work part-time taking care of disabled people. I love it. And she was like, it's just so cute and like all of this. And I was like, I really wish I had broached this topic on the first date instead of waiting until now.
Yeah.
So that was the last date with that person. But yeah. I had one, so I dated a neighbor, my next door neighbor, briefly. We met on Tinder and didn't even realize we were next door neighbors, but she never asked anything. Like we talked for a long time, didn't ask any questions, anything. I'm in her apartment, go into her bedroom, and she just looks at me horrified and she goes, how are you going to get on the bed? And I was like, okay, we should have had a discussion prior to this. But she was like, and I was like, I get in my own bed every night. And she was like, oh, how? And I was like, oh It was fun, but that was also after only one date. So going into
the first one must
not a
have gone
plan.
well.
It did. She had a Google form that she wanted me to fill out, which is very interesting. I found a lot of people my age are doing that now. Like they're making Google forms when they meet somebody on a dating app, so that like everything is out and like what you're wanting out of the relationship, which is interesting.
Wow, I've never heard of that.
I think I've matched with 3 people who had Google forms so far that were my age. Yeah. And I kind of like
What did
it
it look
because
like? What's on it? Like what's on these Google forms?
it'll be like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a hookup, a one night thing, friends with benefits? Do you want like an actual relationship? And I kind of like that because then you don't have to like spend an entire date talking about it or like trying to get vibes from somebody. I don't think I would ever make my own Google form, but it's definitely an interesting concept.
I'm going to.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, but still, like I've had people be like, "Hey, before we go out, can you fill out this Google form?"
Somebody said it sounds like an application. And
I know.
so right.
But
denied for this job, denied.
It's interesting, but like it's nice because then like you're not going in with different expectations of the date. But yeah,
it does kind of take out
seeing
all that weird stuff of like you have to answer all those questions at the beginning.
Yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, I think I don't bring it up on the first date unless they bring it up. I'll bring it up on the second date. I try to like organically slide it in. Like I'll mention like an adaptive sport or something and then be like, oh, by the way, this is my disability, which trying to get it organically is I don't like just awkwardly going, oh hey, by the way, like in the middle of a conversation. But
sometimes I do that right at the beginning. Like if they don't ask anything, I can tell they're a little intimidated. I'm like, you haven't asked anything about my disability. I'm like what? Because I would, oh my gosh, I would. First off, I like when they ask because this is part of my life. That shows that they're curious about a future to me. Like, can I handle this? Like, is this something I really am wanting to like take on? Like, what does her life entail? What can we do? I like that. Like, I'm all about it. Like asking personal questions. I'm in. Like, but I am also intrusive. Like when it comes to questioning with a partner, I'm all about it. I'm like, there's nothing off limits. Nothing. Poor men. These poor men.
Yeah, I think I go back and forth on that because sometimes I recently went on a date and they didn't ask anything and I was like, how come you didn't ask anything? Like kind of like you, Gina, like this is part of my life and it's obvious.
Oh, I know. I'm like,
but it also is like if you're gonna ask me really disrespectful stuff, bye.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even if it's disrespectful, though, a lot of times like I'll ask it back. I think men are they're just shocked, like, like, so can you get it up all the time? Like, I'm just curious, like, because it does put it in perspective for them. Because like asking me if I can have sex is no different than me asking a man if he can hold an erection. I'm sorry. I feel like it's the exact same thing. And because it is intrusive, that question irritates me. Like, I'm like that question is so ignorant too. I'm sorry. It really is, because it's just like, there are so many different ways. We all know there are different ways to have sex, different things that you can utilize. I can have sex with my mouth. I don't even need my vagina, like, but that's the truth. This is something like, we need to realize that people with disabilities are very sexual individuals. Even men that are paralyzed and struggle with having erections, they have all kinds of options. They really do. And so I think that strip somebody, like, can you have sex? That question is like stripping someone of their sexuality. It should be, what are your sexual preferences? That's what I wish someone would ask me. Instead of, can you have sex? Like, yes, I can have sex. If I get that question one more time. Yeah. But yeah, that's it. That's just been being at this game for so long. And that's what I talk about. I think that question also kind of objectifies women too, in a way. So yeah, So men, if you're going to ask them in a nice way.
Yeah, that's another thing is I think women are much less likely to ask. Like even like outside of the dating world, I don't think I've ever had a woman just come up to me in public and ask why I was in a wheelchair. It's almost always men.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I've had women do the whole watch the speed limit, you know, annoying stuff, but it's usually men that are like, so what's wrong with you? Like, and you're just like in line, it's like Starbucks.
Yeah. I tell them
yeah,
a lot of things. When somebody says what's wrong with you, I'm like, a lot of things outside of the wheelchair. Like,
yep.
Yeah, people are intrusive questions. I don't mind it generally. I look at the intent. I realize that people have not had a lot of exposure to disability, and neither did I. And at some point in my life, I had some pretty ignorant thoughts myself. And the beautiful thing about this disability is we have the ability to educate people in a way that they will take that and educate others, and they will treat other people with disabilities better. You know, this is something that, you know, when you're dealing with someone and you're dating and you're disabled, think of how you treat that person, because that person is going to go on, maybe it didn't work between you guys, but they're going to go on and run into another person with a disability. And if you've been rude or treat them like crap or whatever, they're going to apply that to every single person that comes their way. So like, I do think about the fact, even when people say things to me that kind of rub me the wrong way, I give a snarky response, but educational too. Like, I think take your chance to educate people, that if they do offend you, let them know, just tell them.
All right, so let's talk about some dating bloopers here. Have you had them, and are you willing to share some stories? How did you manage, recover, and move on from them?
Do you have one on hand? Because I know I do.
You can go ahead.
God, this is the most embarrassing story. I can't even believe I'm going to share this with you people. I am already, if I didn't have all this makeup on, I would be blushing. So
this is being recorded, let me remind you. So if you don't want it out there.
I don't care. Listen, I'm going to own it. I'm going to own it. I'm going to own it. I don't care. So I was like 20 years old, and I was less than 2 years out actually of my injury. And I was dating, and I was working out a lot. So I was in really good shape, and I felt really good about myself. And I was like bagging some good guys. And this is when dating apps first started coming like on. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna try this. You know, like I think Hot or Not was around. Oh gosh. Anyway, so I go out with this guy that is gorgeous. Okay. I'm like, bagged him, like big truck. He was so cool and he was hot. So he comes over, and like we had gone on a couple of dates, and then at the time I was living with my mom, and I was like, hey mom, can I have this guy over for a couple of beers? We'll just like hang out on the bike. She's like, oh yeah, no problem. My mom's so cool. And so we're having a couple of beers. Well, I didn't realize I didn't really drink a lot of beer at the time. Yeah, I think, you know, and I didn't piss myself, if that's what you're thinking is going to happen. No, it's better. So I'm like so into this guy, and I'm so excited about the whole thing. And we're like having a couple of beers in the back, and he leans over to kiss me. We go to have our first kiss, and I rip one. I farted so loud, and I was like I could have fallen out of my wheelchair at that moment and died and been okay with it. Like I was dead inside. Like I was like, what just happened? And I said to him, I'll never forget this. I looked him in the eyes and I said, well, this is why women in wheelchairs don't date. And laughed, and I was like, I played it off, but it was mortifying to me, because first off, that never happens. And second off, I was like, it's because I was drinking beer, which I never do. But you know, those things for us. And we ended up still talking a little bit here and there, but nothing after that. And it was mortifying. And I've thought about it probably, I don't know, once a week for the rest of my life since then. But yeah, no, things like that. I've had other like things where I'm kind of like, oh, I've got to go quickly because I've got to go cath or something, you know, but nothing. I don't get embarrassed easily, but that was one time I probably, Madison, I looked like your hair. I bet I was so I could have died anyway, but yeah, stuff like that sucks. Anyway, I shared that with you guys. That's my blooper.
I think the worst I've had is just falling out of the bed. I live in a building with twin beds, not made for two people. And not made for two people that one of them has no balance. But I think that's really it.
Oh, I had a guy drop me one time. He was mortified. Oh my God, he was mortified. It was the first time we were like gonna like do the dirty, and he like literally could not it was, I felt horrible for him. He was more, these things happen though. Like you'll just be in weird positions and be twisting around. You might fall out of bed, that kind of stuff. That stuff though, for me, like, I think that's kind of the fun for somebody dating me, is that it's all new and you're going to get the excitement of like, okay, what is this new stuff? Like, and there's a lot of laughter, like a lot of laughter, I think, you know, and if I have to cath during sex, I'll be like, okay, oh my God, I have to be like, which is kind of rare for me because I cath right before anytime, right? You know, everybody knows. You're supposed to like do all that right before and then always after and all of that. And so for me, like that stuff doesn't really like freak me out. It's a part of the body. Everybody shits, everybody pees, sorry, excuse my language, but it's like, you know, everybody does all those things. Everybody farts. Like, for me to feel like I had to be embarrassed of it, like looking back, I was just young, you know, but now I'm like, whatever, I own it.
Yeah, I mean, some stuff that happened to us are so like absurd sometimes that it's just like, oh my God, no one else would understand unless like other wheelchair users, and you just kind of have to laugh about it because.
Oh, heck yeah. I actually was just talking about yesterday, though, all of my able-bodied girlfriends, I love them dearly. All of my able-bodied girlfriends all have to tell me about when they peed themselves, or like when they, like one of them was like, oh my God, I peed myself the other day. Like, they're able-bodied, okay? And I'm dying. They're like, you're not weird. Like, this stuff happens. I'm like, I know. One of my friends, I love her dearly. And she's like, she was running to the bathroom. We were like partying at a place where one of the bathrooms was closed and she had to go to one of the other ones. And she like peed herself on the way. Like, that poor thing. I feel so bad. But listen, this happens to humans. We are humans. We got to stop acting like this stuff is like cliche. Like, it's not. But I'm curious. I saw there was a question. Should we be scared?
Yeah, we're gonna go to questions really soon. Anything you want to ask each other?
I actually am curious. So for you, how do you feel representation of like dating, disability, and being queer is for you? I think there's a lot of like sexuality and dating material that's available that's very like hetero, but how do you feel like that's been tapped into? Do you think it's been, what do you think? Give me your opinion. What it's like, what's it like?
I mean, there's so little representation of queer people in general, especially when it comes to like relationships and sex. My friends always joke that while you're in a wheelchair and gay, pick a struggle, right? People, you know, like people aren't thinking a lot of times, like we're so like desexualized that people don't even think of a person in a wheelchair as having a sexual orientation. I've told people I was gay and they were surprised. They're like, you're both? And I'm like, yes. And so there's definitely like the lack of representation out there in general. I very rarely see like any, you know, when people are doing dating with a disability talks, I very rarely, I don't think I've ever seen a gay man or a queer man in any like event that I've seen around the topic. I went to one event in college that was done by a disabled woman that was about like inclusive sex ed. But she did not use a wheelchair. She used a cane, and so it was a little different. I think I know like I follow a bunch of people online who are queer and disabled, but out there, like in the wild. I don't see a lot of representation. I actually on Tinder the other day came across another lesbian in a wheelchair. And we matched and I messaged her and she didn't message me back.
Yeah, would you date another wheelchair user?
Yes.
Cool.
I think for me, like I transfer independently and fairly easily as a para. And so like I know my mom once said, she's like, you need to date a really strong girl who can carry you. I was like, okay. Let me see if I can find somebody like that. But I think I would definitely date another wheelchair user.
Those were some really great questions. We do have a really good one in the chat. It's from Susan. Do you drive and are you independent to get yourself out of unsafe situations?
So I drive. I wasn't driving when I was in college. I went to college 1,000 miles away from home and I wasn't going to like take my 2013 Ford like all the way. It would have broken down. So I didn't have it in college. So in college, I would just meet somebody on campus and then tell a bunch of my friends where I'm going and like screenshot the Tinder profile and send it to a friend so that they know. But now that I'm like, I've graduated, I do drive and it's easier for me to kind of get out of a situation if I need to. I don't think I'd ever like let somebody like pick me up and drive me somewhere on the first couple dates, just because then you can't get away.
Yeah, I drive myself too as well, luckily. But I mean, for me being a quad, it's probably more dangerous for me. But in all honesty, I know, I don't want a lot of people to be like nervous or scared. I know we're always like, be careful, but like I've done some stupid stuff and I'm alive. Like, okay, and I had fun. I had a lot of fun. Like, I don't feel bad about it. But you just like, trust your gut, trust your instinct. Like, no, like let your friends know. Like, if I'm gonna have somebody over, like I let a girlfriend know. I'm like, hey, what's up? But trust your gut and don't be afraid to like, sometimes having those vulnerable situations too, like you have more intimacy with people and things like that. So like, if you're in a public place all the time and you're terrified, like you don't have that quiet time, don't be afraid. Most people are probably not going to try and kill you, but they might. But so, keep that in mind. They might though.
They might. We have a question in the Q&A. Someone wants to know, how does using dating apps make you feel?
For me, they make me feel empowered, I guess. I feel like I have more control over dating than just going up to somebody at a bar or meeting through a mutual friend, which I think is why I'm like so stuck on dating apps, is that I feel like I have more control over the situation. I can stalk them ahead of time. Like their full name is out there, their picture is out there. I have all of that information ahead of time. I kind of find it empowering just getting a lot of matches. Like I know like in college, me and my friends would like compare like how many matches we got. And so for me, that made me feel good that, okay, I'm in a wheelchair, but still I've matched with these people. So it's empowering to me, but I know like a lot of people feel the exact opposite about them. So
I love them. I feel like I got it when I get on those things, man. I get hit up and I'm like, ha, ha, ha. Like I'm a little devil, man. I'm like, get me off of this stuff. My friends are like, oh, there she goes. We're gonna see her in 3 weeks. No, but it's like, I have a blast with them. I love it. Like I said, though, you've got to have thick skin. You can't take everything personally. Like some people are just jerks. Like, and that's it. And really like giving them that time of day, it's just not even worth it. Focus on the good on the apps. Like, I think that's a really big part of it when you're using it. Make sure you're not like constantly talking about all the negative things that happened on it. Talk about the positive experiences you've had, some of the great things that you've done. I think that keeps things in perspective for people. Also, don't overdo it. A lot of people kind of lose themselves in these apps. You can, and you find your validity in the app, but your like people wanting to date you or not is not reflected in these apps. You have to understand these apps a lot of times are these little stupid popularity contests of who can write the best bio. Like, it doesn't really represent who you are. So remember that, like, if you, it's, take what you can from it, take the good from it that you can, and leave behind the bad, and you'll do great. You'll love them.
Yeah, I've overwhelmingly had positive experiences on dating apps. So I always recommend them.
Someone asked which ones are the best or the worst, or paid versus free, or apps for people with disabilities.
Paid. The paid ones are always better. Tinder, if you want to have sex. No offense. Sorry. But when she said Tinder, I was like, oh, she's having fun. No, Tinder, like, if you want to have hookups and you're wanting to, like, explore without a lot of restriction, Tinder's great. There's a lot of fake profiles though, so be careful. Bumble is amazing if you are a woman who wants to be in control and you don't want men approaching you necessarily. That's a great one. Hinge is really good if you're looking for professionals and somebody who wants something probably a little more serious. Match is for those who are like, let's get married tomorrow, you know, but like, it's true, yeah. And then Plenty of Fish is on the same line of like Hinge and Bumble. All of them, I wrote an article and I tried to, if you guys are wondering, I tried a few of them a couple of years ago. I like tried them all out to compare, and really it's what you're looking for, but always go for the paid ones. Always go for the paid ones. Yeah. If you can.
We have a question.
Do you have any
Oh, sorry.
preferences on which apps? I know you said earlier you use Bumble, but do you have any other preferences or recommendations?
I exclusively use Tinder, and I've primarily used it looking for a relationship. I think that like women on Tinder, like the lesbian Tinder, is very different. I very rarely come across people who are just looking for a hookup. Most bios are like not looking for a hookup. A lot of women will also try to just find friends on Tinder, I've found. But Tinder is the one I always go back to. I tried Bumble, didn't like it, didn't like Hinge. But like Hinge was like a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like you had to put more work in to match with somebody.
I think that dating, like me dating men, is different because men are like pursuers a lot of times. And I think like what you're saying, and the structure of these apps are kind of designed for that.
Mhm.
And that's totally what you're saying. Like, I could understand exactly why they wouldn't be the same for you. Like 100%. Yeah. I see it. When you said that, I'm like, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Somebody asked how much do you chat before meeting up for the first time?
I want like at least a few days where we've like sent a message a day or something, you know, like a few days where we've been talking. I'll talk to people on the app for a while, and then I'll get their Snapchat and usually talk to them on Snapchat. And that's kind of where I would, if we get to like that stage where we're getting Snapchats, like then I'll talk for like a couple days or something. I don't know. I feel like I'm like, it's over a week usually between like when I first start talking to somebody and when we meet up. That's just what makes me feel more comfortable, but I know everybody is different.
Yeah, no, I'm all over the place. Like, it depends on what I'm utilizing the app for at that moment, like kind of what I'm looking for. Sometimes it will not be a lot of chatting, and sometimes it will. Most of the time though, I would say like at least a few. I don't like to like chit chat with people for a long time necessarily. Like, I like meeting in person because I found that like that is just the best way to knock out whether or not, you know, like, is this worth it? Is this something we like? Is this something I'm into? So like I'll meet up pretty quickly usually if I find that the chat goes well a couple days, and I'm like, hey, let's meet, let's grab a drink soon, you know, or let's meet up, like, what's up? Because we're looking for the same thing, obviously. So but really, again, like, do what's comfortable for you, because like that is, you know, that will ensure that you enjoy the time on this dating app, and what you're doing is doing what you want to do and not what the other person on the other side is encouraging you to do. So like, really in your mind, kind of come up with what your standards are before you start doing this, because we can be so influenced by people. So make sure that, you know, come up with something in your head and then approach. That's kind of how I look at it. Yeah.
So I think this will be our final question. It's a two-parter. Somebody asked, how do you spot a fake profile, and are there any common red flags?
A lot of them are verified now. So like if a profile is not verified, if they're using travel mode, like, so if they're using travel mode, if all of their pictures are professional, if their bio has really broken English, duh. But like you'll have like these gorgeous people, like gorgeous. They're on travel mode. They seem like everything's perfect. Also like, so that's kind of for me when I see it, I'm like, yeah, but make sure a lot of these apps now you have to verify yourself. So you can ensure that somebody is real or not, because they have to do like a whole photo verification. So keep that in mind. Yeah, watch for that little check mark.
Yep. And when it comes to women, I've noticed most fake profiles, the woman's in a like a bikini. That's the common one, is like and all the pictures are like from the same day, is something that I see a lot, unless they've snatched pictures from somebody's profile. Yeah. But if they're like grabbing someone online or something, they'll usually like, it's like all in the same outfit and 6 pictures. Definitely the location. If like in Tinder, it's showing that, you know, you live in Georgia and they live in California and they've matched with you, it's probably a bot. Yeah, I don't know that I've ever, like, I have male friends that have matched with them before and found out pretty quickly because the responses they were getting were really weird. Or immediately asking to go to like WhatsApp is another one. Yeah, if they tell you immediately to go to WhatsApp, that's a huge red flag.
And also I think like to spot some devotees too, or devos, like they would usually have just like only women in wheelchairs that are their friends or their followers and stuff. I have found that is a big clue.
I instantly look at who they follow. Click.
Yep.
I'm like, who do you follow? Yeah, you see it pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, we have a minute left. Thank you so much, both of you. Any last thoughts or advice to other women that with disabilities that are gonna
don't let anything hold you back. Do not. You are beautiful in your own way. Like we all possess this like gorgeous like life about us. You know, you're alive and you are a living human and you deserve love, and just like get out there and like give it to yourself. Like don't be shy, don't be scared. Just do it. Like, just do it. Like, just go do it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Just don't be scared. You know, I think a lot of times, like, we don't want to get out there because of our disabilities and you're nervous about what somebody's going to say, but overwhelmingly experiences are positive. I definitely echo, just get out there and do it.
Oh yeah, you won't regret it. And if you do, you'll only regret it for a little while.
Thank you, those of you, so much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Up on the screen are the dates for our next webinars. Rebecca and I are trying to still figure out what our topics are going to be, but we'll let you guys know on social media once we have situated all of that. Please remember that if you are a woman with an SCI, we are hosting a small group to discuss more of tonight's topic in a more private setting. So if you are a lady that has SCI or you know somebody who could benefit from that conversation, please visit our website, sign up for our small discussion group, or you can reach out to me. My email is also on the screen. And we really appreciate you taking the time to fill out the survey. And a recording of this webinar will be sent to you either tomorrow or early on Friday. Thank you so much to Madison and Gina for being our guest speakers today and this amazing dialogue. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys are great.